most of you who have made it this far. Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist. I'm trying to do a theological audit, which is straightening out theology. In the Watchtower study article 41 of the Watchtower study edition for October 2019, Staying Faithful Through the Tribulation, and it's turned out to be a bit of a rabbit hole of theological mess suited to their organisation. But I've come up to this one, paragraph 12. How has the faithful and discreet slave been preparing us for what is coming in the future? Now, identifying the faithful and discreet slave, oh my gosh, I don't know how they've come up with the idea that they are the faithful and discreet slave, but nevertheless they have. And it's this bunch of people, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society governing body. I don't know all the I know Anthony Morris, I know Garrett Loesch, Jeffrey Jackson, Samuel Hurd, Stephen Lett. Not sure of this bloke, and I'm not sure of that bloke, but I do believe, is that Cook? That guy there, I'm not sure, but this is the governing body of the Jehovah Witnesses. Interesting bunch of people. They're leading the deception. To be honest, the only way I can say it is they're leading the deception, but these people are highly theologically deceived. I don't know how else you can put it. It's just the way it is. But thinking they're the faithful and discreet slave of Matthew. And I think we'll go to Matthew 24 in its entirety. This passage is gone over and over. People have gone over and over this again and again and again. Who really is the faithful and discreet slave whom his master appointed over his domestics to give them food, give them their food at the proper time? Happy is that slave if his master on coming finds him doing so. Well, the poor old faithful and discreet slave's in for a shock because they've been lying to their members. Now, this idea that the governing body thinks they're the faithful and discreet slave of Matthew 24. My goodness me, I've talk about use religion as a business shopfront. These guys are the best in the business. I tell you, they've made billions, not millions, billions out of religion.
Jesus did promise that in the last time that there will be a group that will give spiritual food to other Christians. What if they were the ones? There's an anxiety about the identity of faithful and discreet slave that's always subconsciously bothering some former JWs. Those who are still part of the Watchtower organization may still even questioning that idea because they fear that they might have been interfering with Jesus' authority that was placed on the faithful and discreet slave. So how can we meet this challenge? What should we do? Knowledge should help us. We should really look into the scriptures Jesus used, the parables he was talking about, and try to figure out what did Jesus really have in mind. But know one thing, if the householder had known in what watch the thief was coming, he would have kept awake and not allowed his house to be broken into. On this account, you too prove yourselves ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not think to be it. Who really is the faithful and discreet slave whom his master appointed over his domestics to give them their food at the proper time? Happy is that slave if his master on coming finds him doing so. Truly I say to you, he will appoint him over all his belonging. But if ever that evil slave says in his heart, my master is delaying, and he starts to beat his fellow slaves and to eat and drink with the confirmed drunkards, the master of that slave will come on a day that he does not expect, and in an hour that he does not know, and he will punish him with the greatest severity and will assign him his place with the hypocrites. There is where his weeping and the gnashing of his teeth will be. This is one of several parables Jesus used in reference to his arrival or his parousia or his return. The most important context we should bear in mind, he's preparing his disciples to be awake, to keep on the watch. However, Jehovah's Witnesses understand that this parable actually means they should recognize who's the faithful and discreet slave in order to be awake. That you can be awake only if you recognize faithful and discreet slave. But was that what Jesus had in mind? Let's go to another of Jesus' parables, actually the one that just follows after the one we just read. It's the parable of the talents. And let's try to find some similarities. Guess whether these similarities are coincidental, or did Jesus actually talk about one and the same thing? Matthew 25:13-30. Keep on the watch, therefore, because you know neither the day nor the hour. Just like a man about to travel abroad who summoned his slaves and entrusted his belongings to them. He gave 5 talents to one, 2 to another, and 1 to still another, to each according to his own ability. And he went abroad. Immediately, this one who received the 5 talents went and did business with them and gained 5 more. Likewise, the one who received the 2 gained 2 more. But the slave who received just 1 went off and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of the slaves came and settled accounts with them. So the one who had received the 5 talents came forward and brought 5 additional talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I gained 5 talents more. His master said to him, now this is an important verse, and it will ring a bell because it's similar with the previous parable we read. Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will appoint you over many things. Do we see similarities here? Just a little while ago. Faithful slave will be appointed over many things. Well done, faithful and discreet slave. Next, the one who had received the 2 talents came forward and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I gained 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will appoint you over many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Now, probably another parable comes to our mind about the sower. You see, one soil bore 30 times more, one 60 times more, one 100 times more. So this is basically the same idea. According to our abilities, according to the slave's abilities, they will be entrusted some assets. Finally, the slave who had received the 1 talent came forward and said, Master, I knew you to be a demanding man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not winnow. So I grew afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. In reply, his master said, wicked and sluggish slave, you knew, did you, that I reaped where I did not sow and gathered where I did not winnow? Well then, you should have deposited my money with the bankers, and on my coming I would have received it back with interest. Do we see a similarity here? Now, there's a third guy who happens to be sluggish. Isn't that same evil slave? There's a slave that's evil in both parables. What's Jesus talking about one and the same thing? Therefore, take the talent away from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw the good-for-nothing slave out in the darkness outside. This is where his weeping and the gnashing of his teeth will be. Weeping and gnashing of the teeth happens at the end of both parables. And by the way, some other parables as well. At the end, the conclusion is the same. Was Jesus merely saying one and the same message? Now, let's allow Bible itself. Actually, one of the people Jesus directly referred to as when he was telling this and other parables. What did he understand these parables to have meant? 1 Peter 4:10, to the extent that each one has received a gift, what comes to our mind comes maybe talents from the previous parable, or an assignment. Use it in ministering to one another as fine stewards. Who's the faithful and discreet steward? Who's the faithful and discreet slave? What they were entrusted with, of God's undeserved kindness that is expressed in various ways. When we see the entire context of Peter's words, we'll find so many similarities with other Jesus points. We see, this is the context, time of the end. We should be awake. We should keep on the watch. But the end of all things has drawn close. Therefore, be sound in mind and be vigilant with a view to prayers. Above all things, have intense love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. To the extent that each one has received a gift, use it in ministering to one another as fine stewards of God's undeserved kindness that is expressed in various ways. If anyone speaks, let him do so as speaking pronouncements from God. If anyone ministers, let him do so as depending on the strength that God supplies, so that in all things God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. The glory and the might are his forever and ever. Again, we find similarities with previous parables. Each one was given an amount of undeserved kindness or grace, God's grace or God's favor. And we should distribute it to others by ministering to them. And everyone has their own ability. One has this talent, the other one has the other talent. But we should do it all in God's glory. Basically, Peter sums it up and says that if you want to be a Christian, you should work with everything that was entrusted to you and be a faithful and discreet slave yourself. Who are in the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, whether they're faithful and discreet or not, it is Jesus who will finally say that upon his arrival. Each one of us will have to face the same moment. Will we get the title of faithful and discreet slave and be commanded for our diligence, our vigilance, and our hard work? Or will be one of those sluggish slaves or evil slaves who deliberately hid our undeserved kindness that we got and did nothing with it, didn't prove to be Christians. So we can be faithful and discreet one day, pronounced faithful and discreet slave, and we don't necessarily need to provide spiritual food to others. We can express God's undeserved kindness to others in many, many different ways, by showing love, showing compassion, serving others, ministering to others. So it's so reassuring that everybody can get this commendation and this reward from the Master, because everything we do will be in his glory and the glory of his Son, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.